I watched through the glass walls of my corner office as Marcus Sterling strode across the executive floor like he owned the place. In a way, he did now. My ex-wife, Sarah, had ensured that by marrying him 3 months ago and using her inherited shares to vote him in as CEO. I'm Daniel Foster, founder of Foster Technologies. 15 years of building this company from a small 8 consulting firm into a $200 million enterprise. And now I was being systematically pushed out by my ex-wife's new husband. Daniel, Marcus called out, entering without knocking. Just wanted to remind you about Tuesday's board meeting. We'll be discussing the restructuring plan. Restructuring. Their polite word for dismantling everything I'd built. I'll be there, I said, not looking up from my laptop. Excellent. Oh, and we'll need your office cleared by Friday. The renovation team starts Monday. Now I did look up. My contract specifies this office. Marcus smiled, all perfect teeth and expensive suit. Contracts can be amended. Sarah agrees it's time for some changes. Of course she did. Sarah had changed too, transformed from the supportive wife who'd stood beside me during the lean startup years into someone I barely recognized. Money and status had that effect on some people. After he left, I opened my secure email and checked the timestamp on the message I'd sent to our overseas auditing firm 3 days ago. Perfect timing. What Marcus and Sarah didn't know, what they'd never bothered to investigate, was that I'd structured the company's international operations very carefully. Every subsidiary, every offshore account, every international contract had been set up with multiple layers of verification. Layers that would become very important on Tuesday. My phone buzzed. Speaking of Sarah. We need to talk about the restructuring, she said without preamble. Marcus has some concerns about your resistance to changes. Does he? I leaned back in my chair. Interesting, considering he's been CEO for all of 2 months. He has experience turning companies around. We don't need turning around. We're profitable, growing, and stable. We could be more profitable. She paused. Daniel, don't make this difficult. You're still a major shareholder. Focus on that and let Marcus handle operations. I thought about the early days when Sarah had worked extra hours teaching to support us while I built the company. How she believed in my vision, celebrated every small victory, until the victories got bigger and the celebrations more elaborate. Remember when we used to discuss company decisions together? I asked. That was different. We were married then. No, it was different because you still cared about building something worthwhile, not just looking successful. She hung up. I spent the weekend in my home office, reviewing documents and preparing for Tuesday. The house felt empty now. Sarah had gotten it in the divorce, but I'd bought it back when she moved in with Marcus. Too many memories here to let go. Monday morning, Marcus called an executive team meeting. I sat quietly while he outlined his vision for streamlining operations. Our international divisions are too complex, he declared. We're going to consolidate everything through our Cayman Islands holding company. Simpler tax structure, better profit margins. Several executives nodded approvingly. They'd all been hired after we'd gone public, after the hard work of building the foundation was done. None of them understood the real purpose behind our corporate structure. Questions? Marcus asked, looking directly at me. Just one, I said. Have you reviewed the requirements for moving funds between subsidiaries? He waved dismissively. Our accounting team has handled everything. I nodded and said nothing more. Tuesday would be interesting enough without showing my hand early. That evening, Sarah came to my office. She looked elegant as always, but there was something harder in her face now, something that success had carved into her features. Marcus showed me the consolidation plan, she said. It makes sense. You're being stubborn for no reason. Am I? I turned to my monitor so she could see the quarterly reports. We're up 28% year over year. Our international operations are running smoothly. Why fix what isn't broken? Because we can do better. She perched on the edge of my desk like she used to years ago. Daniel, you built something impressive. But maybe it's time to let someone else take it to the next level. Someone like Marcus. He understands modern business practices, global markets, digital transformation. I had to laugh. He understands leveraged buyouts and asset stripping. Did you know his last 3 companies were sold off in pieces within a year of his taking control? Sarah's expression hardened. You've been investigating him. Like you should have before making him CEO. She stood abruptly. The board meets tomorrow. Don't try to fight this. You'll only hurt yourself. After she left, I sent one final email to our auditors in Singapore. Everything was in place for tomorrow. Tuesday morning arrived bright and clear. I dressed carefully, the same suit I'd worn when signing our first $1 million contract. It felt appropriate. The boardroom filled slowly. Marcus sat at the head of the table, Sarah beside him. The other directors filed in, followed by our CFO and legal team. Before we begin, Marcus announced, I want to present our international consolidation strategy. The potential savings are significant. He launched into a detailed presentation full of impressive graphs and projected earnings. Several board members took notes enthusiastically. Questions? He asked finally. I raised my hand. Just one. Did you authorize the transfer of $40 million from our Singapore subsidiary to the Cayman Holding Company last week? The room went silent. Marcus frowned. That's part of the consolidation. Perfectly normal procedure. Interesting, I said, opening my laptop. Because according to our international banking protocols, any transfer over $10 million requires 3 separate authorizations. Mine, the regional directors, and our compliance officers. Which were obtained, Marcus said smoothly. Were they? I turned my screen to show the transfer documentation. Because these signatures are dated last Tuesday, when our compliance officer was in the hospital for surgery. The CFO sat up straighter. Sarah's face went pale. Furthermore, I continued, our Singapore subsidiary's charter requires all major transfers to be approved by their local board, which wasn't consulted. Marcus's confidence wavered slightly. These are technical details. Technical details that make the transfer illegal under Singapore banking laws. I clicked to the next document. The Singapore Commercial Affairs Department started their investigation this morning. The boardroom erupted in confused questions. The legal team huddled together, whispering urgently. That's not all, I said over the chaos. Every international subsidiary has similar requirements that can't be bypassed by simply consolidating operations. Sarah stood up. This is a delay tactic. Nothing more. Actually, our head of legal interrupted. This is serious. Singapore banking violations carry criminal penalties. Marcus tried to regain control. We can sort this out. Sort out what? I asked mildly. The illegal transfer. The forged signatures. Or the fact that the money never actually reached the Cayman account. Now even Sarah looked confused. What do you mean? I displayed another document. The funds were automatically returned when the proper authorizations couldn't be verified. Standard security protocol. One I implemented 5 years ago. The board members were all talking at once now. Marcus had gone from confident to concerned to something close to panic. Additionally, I continued, attempted unauthorized transfers trigger automatic audits of all related accounts. Those audits began this morning. Should be interesting to see what they find. Sarah grabbed Marcus's arm. Did you know about this? His silence was answer enough. The next few hours were chaos. The legal team discovered multiple attempted transfers, all carefully documented by our security systems. The CFO found irregularities in Marcus's expense accounts. By afternoon, The board had called an emergency session. Marcus was suspended pending investigation. Sarah left without looking at anyone. As the boardroom emptied, one of the original directors stayed behind. "You knew," he said. "You knew they'd try something like this." I nodded. Marcus has a pattern. Buy in, strip assets, sell off. Sarah just wanted change. She stopped seeing the value in building things properly. Why didn't you warn us earlier? Sometimes people need to see the consequences of their choices. Besides, I smiled slightly, Tuesday is always a good day for audits. That evening, I worked late in my corner office, the one I wouldn't have to vacate after all. Sarah called twice. I let it go to voicemail. The Singapore authorities would have questions. The board would need reassurance. There would be changes coming, but not the kind Marcus had planned. I looked out over the city lights, remembering all the late nights Sarah and I had spent here during the early years, planning, dreaming, building. Somewhere along the way, she'd lost sight of what made it all worthwhile. My phone buzzed with a message from our Singapore director. Audit team found more. Meeting tomorrow. I texted back a single word. Yes. Sometimes the best defense isn't confrontation or resistance. Sometimes it's simply building something so solid, so carefully structured, that it protects itself when the storm comes. Tuesday had changed everything. But maybe that's exactly what needed to happen. The aftermath of Tuesday's revelations unfolded like a slow-motion earthquake. By Wednesday morning, Foster Technologies' legal team had uncovered 7 more attempted unauthorized transfers, each one carefully trapped and documented by the systems I'd put in place years ago. I'd arrived early, before sunrise, to find 3 voicemails from Sarah and a resignation letter from Marcus on my desk. The letter was brief, citing personal reasons for his departure. No mention of the attempted asset stripping or the Singapore investigation. My phone rang. Private number. Mr. Foster. A clipped British accent. This is Edwin Matthews from the Financial Times. We're running a story about irregularities at Foster Technologies. Care to comment? Send your questions to our PR team, I'd replied, though I knew exactly who would leak to the press. Marcus was trying to control the narrative. The board called an emergency meeting for 9 a.m. As I walked into the boardroom, I noticed Sarah's empty seat. For the first time in 15 years, she wouldn't be part of a major company decision. The Singapore authorities want answers, Harold Chen, our head of legal, began. They're talking about criminal charges. Not against the company, I clarified. Our security systems worked exactly as designed. The attempted transfers were caught and reversed. But Marcus's signatures, someone started, were forged, I finished, along with several others. The question is who helped him. The room grew quiet. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Sarah had to have known. There's something else, Harold said, sliding a folder across the table. We found drafts of a restructuring plan on Marcus's company laptop. He was planning to break up the international divisions and sell them separately. I opened the folder, though I didn't need to see the details. Classic asset stripping. How much would he have made? Conservative estimate, about $300 million. The board members shifted uncomfortably. They'd all voted to make him CEO, swayed by his smooth presentations and Sarah's endorsement. What do we do now? Asked Janet Myers, one of our newest directors. We do what we've always done, I said. We build. We grow. We protect what matters. By afternoon, the story had hit the financial news. Our stock took a small hit, but stabilized when the details emerged. How our security systems had prevented any actual losses, how the company's structure had protected itself. Sarah finally appeared at my office around 4. You set him up, she accused, closing the door behind her. I looked up from my work. No, Sarah. He set himself up. I just made sure we had safety nets in place. Those transfer restrictions, you added them right after our divorce, didn't you? Actually, they were there before we even met. Page 47 of the original incorporation documents. You would know that if you'd ever read them. She sank into a chair, suddenly looking tired. I didn't know about the transfers, or the restructuring plan. Didn't know, or didn't want to know. What's that supposed to mean? I turned to my monitor to show her a document. This is from 3 months ago. A memo from Marcus to the board about streamlining international operations. You seconded the motion. That was about efficiency. That was the first step in his asset stripping plan. He needed board approval to start consolidating divisions. You gave him that. She stared at the memo, her face a mixture of anger and something else. Shame, maybe, or regret. I really thought he could make the company better, she said quietly. Better than what? We're profitable, growing, respected in the industry. Our employees have good benefits, career paths, stability. What exactly needed fixing? It all seemed so old-fashioned. Marcus talked about digital transformation, aggressive growth. Marcus talked about whatever would get him control. I softened my tone. Remember when we used to talk about building something that would last? Something that mattered. She looked around the office, at the awards on the walls, the photos of company milestones, the view of the city we'd helped shape. I remember believing in it, she said finally. In you. In us. The company hasn't changed, Sarah. Its values, its purpose. They're the same as when we started. You're the one who changed. She stood abruptly. The board will need my resignation, I suppose. They'll expect it. Yes. She paused at the door. Did you know? When you married me, did you know I could change like this? I knew money changes people. Success changes people. I just hoped our foundation was stronger than that. After she left, I spent some time looking at old photos on my phone. Sarah and I at the company's first office, both looking exhausted but happy. At the signing of our first major contract. At countless late-night strategy sessions. My assistant interrupted my thoughts. Singapore authorities on line 1. And the Wall Street Journal wants a statement. The next few days were a blur of meetings, interviews, and damage control. Our PR team crafted a narrative emphasizing the company's robust security measures. The stock recovered and even gained value as investors appreciated our structural integrity. A week after Tuesday's revelations, I called a company-wide meeting. Every office globally joined via video conference. You've all heard the rumors, I began. Yes, there was an attempt to break up our company. Yes, it was stopped. But that's not what I want to talk about today. I paused, looking at the faces before me, in person and on screens. I want to talk about why we built Foster Technologies the way we did. Why we have subsidiaries that operate independently but support each other. Why we prioritize stability over quick profits. Why we invest in our people and our communities. The room was silent, attentive. We built this company to last. Not to be stripped and sold, not to be a stepping stone to quick wealth, but to create something meaningful. Something that provides jobs, innovations, and value to society. I clicked to show our original mission statement, written 15 years ago. This hasn't changed, and it won't change. Not because of one person's greed or another's ambition, but because all of you, everyone in this room and watching globally, you understand what we're building here. The applause started slowly, then built to a thunderous level. Later that evening, as I was leaving the office, I found a note on my desk. Sarah's handwriting. You were right about the foundation. Yours was stronger than mine. Take care of our company. I folded the note carefully and put it away. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to build and grow. But for now, I could appreciate how close we'd come to losing everything, and how the very structures we'd created had protected us when we needed them most. Sometimes the strongest foundations are the ones you can't see until they're tested. Sometimes the best revenge is simply building something too strong to break. A month after Marcus's failed takeover attempt, I sat in my office reviewing the changes that had reshaped Foster Technologies. Sarah's resignation from the board had been accepted unanimously. Her shares, per our divorce agreement, were now in a trust managed by independent directors. Marcus faced criminal charges in Singapore, though his high-priced lawyers were fighting extradition. But the real changes were happening beneath the surface. The Singapore audit revealed something interesting, said Peter Wong, our new head of international operations. He'd flown in from our Asian headquarters for this meeting. Those security protocols you implemented, they've stopped similar attempts at 3 other tech companies in the region. I raised an eyebrow. Other companies are using our system. We licensed it to them 5 years ago, remember? Part of that cybersecurity initiative you started. I did remember. It had seemed like a small project then, sharing our financial security protocols with partner companies. Now it was proving to be an unexpected shield for the entire industry. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, selling my shares. Thought you should know first. I set the phone aside. Her shares would be bought by the employee trust I'd established years ago. Another foundation stone that had proved its worth. There's something else, Peter continued. The financial media is calling it the Foster Framework, using distributed authority and automated checks to prevent corporate raiders. We've had 12 inquiries about licensing the system this week alone. Sometimes the best defenses become weapons in their own right. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Foster, there's someone here to see you. Says she's from your past. I checked my calendar. No appointments scheduled. Name? Amanda Mitchell. My heart skipped a beat. Amanda had been our first employee, back when Foster Technologies was just 3 people in a rented office. She'd left 8 years ago to start her own company. Send her in. Amanda looked exactly as I remembered. Practical business suit, no-nonsense expression, sharp eyes that missed nothing. Hello, Daniel. Quite a month you've had. I gestured for her to sit. What brings you back? She placed a folder on my desk. My company's developed some interesting security applications. Built on your original framework, actually. I thought you might want to see them. I opened the folder. The technical specifications were impressive. She'd taken our basic security protocols and evolved them into something more comprehensive. You saw what happened with Marcus coming, she said. Didn't you? I nodded slowly. Not specifically. But I've seen enough corporate raiders to recognize the pattern. That's why we built the safeguards. Sarah never understood that part, did she? The need for protection against success itself. Amanda had known us both in the early days and had watched our marriage strain under the weight of growing wealth and status. Sarah understood building things, I said. She just forgot about protecting them. That's why I'm here. Amanda leaned forward. My company's developed these security protocols, but we need a partner with global reach to implement them. Someone who understands why they matter. I studied her proposal more carefully. The potential was significant, not just for profits, but for creating a new standard in corporate security. Why now? I asked. Because what happened here with Marcus, it's happening everywhere. Companies built by dreamers being stripped by schemers. Someone needs to stop it. By evening, we had the framework of a deal. Amanda's company would merge with our security division, creating a new subsidiary focused on corporate protection systems. As we finished the paperwork, she paused. Have you heard from Sarah since everything happened? She's selling her shares. Amanda nodded. You know, she came to see me last week. Asked about the early days, what I remembered. This was news to me. What did you tell her? The truth. That you two built something amazing. That she lost sight of it somewhere along the way. That money changes people, but principles don't have to. I walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Did it help her understand? Maybe, she cried. "First time I've seen it since you went public." After Amanda left, I found myself reviewing old company videos, our first office party, product launches, team celebrations. Sarah was in many of them, her smile genuine, her enthusiasm infectious. My phone buzzed again. "Sarah, the lawyers say I need your approval for the share transfer." "It's already done. The employee trust is ready to purchase." A pause. "You knew I'd sell." "I knew you'd do what was best for the company. You always did, until I forgot what we were building," she finished. "Amanda told you about our talk." "Yes." Another pause. "I've been thinking about the early days. Remember when we couldn't make payroll, and you sold your car?" I smiled at the memory. "You gave up your jewelry to cover the insurance premiums. We believed in it so much then. In building something that mattered. It still matters, Sarah. That's what you couldn't see anymore." The line went quiet for so long, I thought she'd hung up. "The new security system," she finally said. "The one that caught Marcus. That was Amanda's design, wasn't it? Built on our original framework, from when you helped design the first protocols." I heard her sharp intake of breath. "I did, didn't I? I'd forgotten that. You helped build all the foundations, Sarah, even the ones that ultimately stopped you." After we hung up, I called Amanda. "The merger announcement," I said. "Let's do it next week." "Why the rush?" "Because somewhere out there, another company like ours is facing its own Marcus. Let's give them the tools to fight back." The next morning, I called a leadership meeting. Every department head, every key manager, gathered in the conference room. "We're expanding our mission," I announced. "Not just building technology, but protecting the builders, creating systems that help good companies stay good, even when success tries to change them." I showed them Amanda's designs and explained the merger plan, watching their eyes light up with understanding. "This is bigger than just us now," I concluded. "This is about protecting everything we believe in, not just here, but everywhere people are trying to build something meaningful." The room erupted in questions, ideas, and suggestions. These were the builders, the ones who understood what we were fighting for. Later, alone in my office, I found an old photo in my desk. Sarah and me on opening day, standing in front of our first office sign. Both smiling, both believing in what we were building. I texted her the photo. "We got this part right." Her reply came quickly. "Yes, we did. Don't let anyone else forget why." Sometimes the best way forward is to remember where you started. Sometimes the strongest protection comes from the very principles you began with. And sometimes, just sometimes, what you build becomes stronger than what tried to break it. 6 months after the Marcus incident, I stood in the auditorium of Foster Technologies' new Security Innovation Center. The merger with Amanda's company had transformed our security division into something even I hadn't imagined. The Foster framework has now been implemented in over 200 companies worldwide. Amanda announced to the gathered crowd of investors, media, and industry leaders. Corporate takeover attempts have dropped 60% in organizations using our protocols. From my seat in the front row, I watched our creation evolve beyond its origins. What had started as a defense against one man's greed had become a shield for companies everywhere. The morning news had carried the final chapter of the Marcus story. He'd accepted a plea deal with Singapore authorities, avoiding jail time but paying substantial fines and accepting a lifetime ban from corporate leadership positions. Sarah had sent a brief email. "Saw the news. Glad it's over. The Innovation Center looks impressive." I'd invited her to the opening ceremony, but she'd declined. Some bridges couldn't be rebuilt, only remembered. After the presentations, Amanda joined me in my office. "The employee trust is working beautifully," she said, reviewing the quarterly reports. "Share value is up 40% since they acquired Sarah's stake." I nodded. "Because they understand what they're investing in." Not just profits, but purpose. Speaking of purpose, she slid a folder across my desk. 3 more companies reached out this week, all facing hostile takeover attempts, all asking for help implementing the framework. I opened the folder, reading the details. Each company had a similar story. Founders being pushed out, values being compromised, quick profits prioritized over lasting value. We can help them, I said. Already started, but there's something else. Amanda pulled up a presentation on my monitor. We've identified a pattern. The same investment groups, the same tactics, moving from company to company. Marcus wasn't an isolated case. He was part of a system we can stop. I studied the data she'd compiled. The connections were clear once you knew where to look. My phone buzzed, a message from Sarah. Saw Marcus took the plea deal. The trust is doing well. You were right about letting the employees be the owners. I showed Amanda the message. She's changed, Amanda observed. We all have. That's not always a bad thing. The afternoon brought a series of meetings with companies interested in implementing our security protocols. Each founder had a story similar to mine, building something meaningful, then fighting to protect it from those who saw only profit potential. By evening, I found myself back in the Innovation Center, looking at the wall of screens showing our global network of protected companies. Each point of light represented someone's dream being preserved. My phone rang, an unknown number. Mr. Foster. A familiar British accent. Edwin Matthews from the Financial Times again. We're doing a follow-up piece on corporate protection systems. Care to comment on how your experience shaped the Foster framework? This time, I didn't redirect him to PR. It's simple, really, I said. We build something to protect what matters, not just money or assets, but principles, values, the things that make a company worth building in the first place. And the personal cost? Your marriage? I thought carefully before answering. Sometimes protecting what you build means losing something along the way. The trick is remembering what's worth protecting. After the call, I walked through the quiet offices. The night shift security team nodded as I passed. They understood better than most what we were guarding against. A final email from Sarah waited in my inbox. Watched your Innovation Center launch online. You've built something amazing, something that matters. Thank you for protecting what we started, even when I forgot why it mattered. I wrote back a simple reply. It still matters. Always will. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new companies needing protection, new battles between builders and breakers. But tonight, I could appreciate how our near failure had led to something stronger, not just for us, but for everyone trying to build something meaningful. The Foster framework had become more than just corporate security protocols. It was a statement about values, about protecting what matters, about helping good companies stay true to their principles. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's building something that helps others protect what they've built. Sometimes it's turning your worst moment into everyone else's best defense. I shut down my computer and took one last look at the Innovation Center's wall of lights. Each point represented a dream protected, a foundation strengthened, a future secured. That was worth everything we'd lost along the way. That was worth building. That was worth protecting.